I have seen elections. I have seen political roadshows. I have seen victory marches and grand religious gatherings. I have seen this capital city fill up for 100 different reasons. But this was something completely different. Wave after wave of young people just kept arriving. Thousands of students with backpacks, teenagers holding placards, young women shouting slogans with a courage that literally made the air vibrate. And then the police advanced. Tear gas was fired. People started coughing, running, stumbling through the smoke. Police chased protesters through the streets and struck them with batons. Not just those marching, even people who were simply standing there felt the sting of the lathi. Not even media persons were spared. I was hit too, on my hand, on my back. For a second, I just stood there stunned, not because the pain was unbearable. A lathi hurts, yes. But what really shocks you is the realization that you can be hit even when you are not attacking anyone. I remember looking around through the smoke. People were coughing so hard they could barely speak. Some were pouring water on each other's faces. One student was trying to help a girl who had fallen near the barricade, while another kept shouting, "Don't panic. Don't run. Stay together." That line stayed with me. Stay together. Because that is exactly what I saw. I saw young people refusing to abandon each other. I tried to move closer again, but every lane felt like a river of students. They were not moving like a mob. They were moving with purpose. Backpacks bouncing on their shoulders. Placards held high. Slogans rising and falling like waves. Modi jab jab darta hai, पुलिस को आगे करता है. Modi jab jab darta hai, पुलिस को आगे करता है. The more the police pushed, the more people seemed to arrive. That was the moment I realized something extraordinary was happening. Fear was not spreading. Courage was. I have spent years watching people whisper their political opinions in private. Don't say this loudly. Careful, someone might hear. Delete that message. Don't post that online. Yesterday, I saw the opposite. I saw many political leaders, even CJP's Abhijit Dipke, calling yesterday a black day. I disagree completely. Yesterday was not a black day. Yesterday was a golden day. I know that sounds insane after everything I just described. Tear gas, lathi charge, blood, panic, chaos. But yesterday was the day I saw India awaken from a 10-year coma. It was the day I saw actual hope on the streets. It was the day democracy looked the dictator dead in the eye and said, "You can try to strangle me all you want, but I'm still breathing." Because let us be honest, lathi charge is not new. Tear gas is not new. Beatings are not new. Forced silence is not new for the minorities of this country. For the Dalits, especially in the northern parts of India, it is a daily lived reality. The state crushing the marginalized is the established norm. So the brutality itself did not shock me. What shocked me was the scale of resistance. This decade has seen many people suffer. But we have rarely seen young people stand together in such numbers and refuse to disappear. That is new. Resistance at this scale. Unity at this scale. Young people refusing to be frightened at this scale. That is what made me cry. I was standing there, surrounded by smoke, sirens, shouting, and chaos, and suddenly, at one point, I started crying like anything. And a student next to me asked, "Bhai, are you okay?" I want to tell him, "No, idiot, I am not okay. You people just restored my faith in this country. I am a grown man. I have been covering politics for nearly a decade. I have seen promises made and broken. I have seen cynicism become fashionable. And somewhere inside me, a part of my patriotism had gone into hibernation. Yesterday, those students woke it up. I saw a girl who could not have been more than 18, standing in front of a police line and shouting slogans with tears in her eyes, but no fear in her voice. I saw boys carrying strangers who had fainted from tear gas. I saw people who had just beaten returning to the crowd instead of disappearing home. I saw people sharing water, masks, and courage. Nobody was asking for caste certificates before helping each other. That is the India I had been searching for. The television tells us India is a civilization. Yesterday I saw it become a community. I saw students standing shoulder to shoulder. I saw strangers protecting strangers. I saw young Indians who could have stayed home watching reels and memes, choosing instead to stand in front of parents for what they believed was right. I saw kids bleeding from the lathi charge who didn't run back to the safety of their hostels. They sat right back down on the pavement, wiped the blood from their foreheads and started singing Kadam Kadam Badhaye Ja, Khushi ke geet gaye ja, ye zindagi hai qaum ki tu qaum pe lutaye ja, sarfaroshi ki tamanna ab hamare dil mein hai, dekhna hai zor kitna baazue qatil mein hai, hum dekhenge lazim hai कि हम भी देखेंगे, हम देखेंगे. How can people sing about dawn while standing inside tear gas? How can voices rise when lungs are burning? How can songs survive when barons are swinging? But they did. They kept singing. One girl, maybe 17, was crying while singing. कर चले हम फिदा जानो तन साथियों अब तुम्हारे हवाले वतन साथियों. And that line broke something inside me because these were not freedom fighters from a black and white documentary. These were students who had exams next month, hostel rent due next week, parents calling them every hour, careers hanging by a thread. And yet, in that moment, they were carrying the emotional weight of a republic. That is why I cannot call it a black day. A black day is when citizens become silent. A black day is when injustice is accepted as normal. A black day is when people stop showing up. Yesterday, despite tear gas, despite barons, despite intimidation, people kept showing up. That means the democratic pulse is still waiting. Weak, bruised, gassed, lathi charge, but beating. A black day is when fear wins. Yesterday, fear did not win. There is not darkness, there is light. Authoritarianism survives on one emotion above all: isolation. It wants every citizen to believe I am alone. Alone in my anger, alone in my frustration, alone in my fear. Yesterday, thousands of young people discovered the opposite. They discovered that they were not alone. I kept wiping my tears. And the absurd part is that the more I cried, the more hopeful I became. My eyes were burning from the gas, and I was crying like a child. Someone I had never met put a hand on my shoulder and said, "Bhai, we are all together." That sentence hit me harder than the lathi. We are all together. Do you understand what that means in today's India? A country where we have been systematically taught to suspect each other. Hindu versus Muslim, upper caste versus Dalit, North versus South, nationalist versus anti-national, urban versus rural, us versus them. Yesterday that machinery failed. The labels dissolved in the smoke. I saw people who had never exchanged a word in their lives treating each other like family. That is why I cannot reduce yesterday to a tragedy alone. Yes, what happened was brutal. Yes, citizens were beaten. Yes, force was used. Those facts must be remembered. But if we remember only the brutality, we miss the most important part of the story. The state showed its power. The youth showed their courage. I remember looking at a sea of young faces and thinking, these people were children when this political era began. They grew up with paper leaks, unemployment, rising hate, shrinking freedoms, and endless propaganda. Yet, instead of becoming numb, they showed up. That is what shattered me emotionally. I was crying because I realized I had underestimated my own country. If this spirit survives, India is not finished. Bruised, yes. Polarized, yes. Exhausted, absolutely. But finished? No. Bharatiya Janata showed its brutality. Bharat ki Janata showed its spine. Jai Hind.